whenever a visa bulletin comes out, it brings a lot of anxiety with it. And nothing was different with the August visa bulletin that just got announced. Well, the one thing that did happen with August 2023 visa bulletin is that it blew everybody away. All right. So what does that mean? Why did it blow away? What has happened? I'm going to talk about all of this with my special guest, Anirban Das. I know you guys wait to hear him speak. He's such a powerhouse of knowledge. So it's my honor and privilege to have him here on the show today. My name is Neha Mahajan, and you are listening to the American Alien Podcast. So, Anirban, the bada dhamaka has happened today. As everybody, the social media is blowing. My WhatsApp is blowing away with this news, the August visa bulletin, and I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams had thought of what has happened. EB1 for India has retrogressed for final action dates to 2012. At first, anybody who saw it thought it was a typo. Right. And like all of us had to kind of reread it to see what has actually happened, because I think those born in India who wait for visa bulletin each month kind of expect not a lot of movement happening. And for whatever we've seen since October of 2022 is a lot of retrogression. So we're kind of used to it, still hopeful that, things might move. But this is the lowest of the lows that I've ever seen from USCIS and Department of State. What do you have to say?
Yeah, we have never seen EB1 retrogress that much. This was big. And I think if you look at the visa bulletin as a whole, you will see that all the categories pretty much have cutoff dates, right? That pretty much tells us, that's an indication that USCIS is telling us is that they have pretty much run out of green cards for this year. That's basically the idea. So the visa bulletin for next month would pretty much be the same, if not retrogress further. That's the bad news, because that's pretty much what USCIS is telling us with giving cutoff dates. And I think the problem is because of the increase in like EB1 applications with the economy doing well. NIW applications have definitely gone up a lot. The rest of the world have retrogressed, which means there is basically no horizontal spillover, right? That's what people usually expect.
Yes.
And because the rest of the world have retrogressed, it means they have run out of their green cards. There are no horizontal spillover of extra green cards from ROW to the most backlogged countries, which is obviously India.
Yeah.
And which means India is basically getting pretty much only their quota of this year, and that pretty much retrogress the dates. Now, right. I know why people would say, why 2012? Does this mean people from 2012 are waiting?
Right.
This was interesting that I saw in the visa bulletin that USCIS actually did put, I would say, basically they said, there's too much of demand, blah, 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 the same literature pretty much. And this is the reason, based on the quotas, they had to retrogress the dates. But the 2012 to 2015, they put an interesting tidbit where they said, like, that's basically the earliest EB1 date that they have for India, right?
Yeah.
So now people were, I think that kind of threw people off, which was like, how is it people from 2012 in EB1 still wait?
Exactly. Right? Because it was current until last year, until October of 2022, when it first retrogressed. It has always remained current, except for, we've had a few exceptions.
Last few months.
Correct.
So I think and then that's the explanation that they provided is like, there are many people from EB2 and EB3 which actually ported to EB1 and are now using their old priority date, which is interesting. So which means, people could have been trying. We heard from a few people that people have been trying for EB1A and EB1B, fantastic if they're trying to do that. It's also possible some people, have been trying the EB1C route maybe, and they're using their old lower priority dates. So whatever it is, obviously earlier people used to port from EB3 to EB2, right? Now it's like trying to port from EB2 to EB1 because that's the one that has
categories. So a lot of these cases, people didn't know that they actually do qualify for EB1 or O1 and then EB1, right? So I think that kind of caught fire in the last few years, especially when the dates retrogressed for EB2. and EB3. Now, my question is, and I'm actually, looking at the explanation right here.
Yeah,
I have it on my phone, and it's funny that they've used about 120 words to explain that, the EB1 final action date for India, effective in August, is, oversubscribed and therefore subject to proration under INA 202E. All right. And until now, applicants chargeable to India had been able to receive prior unused numbers within EB1A under INA 202A5. And, it's funny. At some levels, I feel like isn't USCIS or Department of State accountable or keeping track? It's like, they opened the flood doors and then suddenly they realize, oh my God, it's causing flooding. Let's close them down. Let's shut them down.
It's very interesting that you brought this up, because I'll mention this. In 2016 and 2017, USCIS had actually overissued the EB1 category, and they, when the immigrant visa report came out for the year, they had actually issued 43,000 green cards for EB1, and I think at some more point later towards the end of the fiscal year, they kind of realized that they oversubscribed, so they suddenly retrogressed the dates. But by that time, the damage was done, right? But you still have to be within 140K. They actually took out green cards from EB2 and EB3 categories, the categories that are most backlogged for India. And guess who got affected by it? Obviously, the most backlogged community, right? Because ROWs, they're mostly current. So their green cards will be processed by the time USCIS processes their green cards. Anytime green cards are wasted or misallocated, it's always the backlog community that suffers. I mean, their wait time exponentially increases whenever something like this happens.
And that's a topic of discussion in itself. Green card wastage, the whole recapture. And I want to talk to you about this, but not today. We will definitely discuss this. There's a lot of, noise happening around it. Everybody is banking upon it, and there have been some recommendations. So we'll definitely talk about it, but I don't want to digress from this particular discussion that we are having today. Now, I'm looking at the dates and the final action dates, if we were to just look at that, because USCIS has been just using those in the last many months, really, to adjudicate cases. So India under EB1 is at January 1, 2012. For EB2 category, India is at January 11, 1st January 2011. For EB3, India is at January 2009. Right. And that's something people have been discussing also, like who's waiting in EB3 with a Jan 09 date, right? What's even more interesting to see is that every category, every country is right now heavily backlogged, except for, EB1 in rest of the world and Mexico, Philippines.
Everybody has cutoff dates, right? Isn't that?
Sorry?
Every category has cutoff
every
dates,
category, right? Like people were joking on WhatsApp that we should apply for religious visas, but even that is backlogged. That is in 2018. So what are they talking about? Right? You can't even get a religious category visa under EB4 or the other categories. So every single category is right now backlogged. It's not just bad news. I think it's catastrophic for those stuck in backlog.
It's kind of interesting that EB2 people or EB3 people may have, try to port to EB1, right?
Yes.
So now the interesting part is we know there are people with multiple I-140s in EB2 and EB3, right? So if you look at the I-140 data, it kind of counts them both, right? So we know they're being double counted. The thing is, once a green card will be issued, the person basically leaves both the categories. So essentially, if the person gets a green card in EB2 along with the dependents, they will basically leave the EB2 as well as the EB3 queue if they have queues. And I think we can confidently say this, that people with PDs till 2014 have I-140s in EB2 and EB3. People have been trying to downgrade and upgrade ever since the whole COVID thing happened and some of that stuff. And that's the reason why EB3 went ahead to December of 2014, right? Because there was nobody in EB3 initially. Everybody was fighting in EB2, right? So
Yeah.
EB3 was empty. Then people from EB2 went to EB3. EB3 got backlogged again. Now EB2 is ahead. It's
Yeah.
kind of a mess, and you can understand why people are trying to like jump from category to category, just
Right.
trying to
Because
catch their
it
priority.
is life changing. So much
Yeah.
depends on your green card, and these are people that we're talking about who've lived in United States of America for decades. And how unfair that their counterparts from rest of the world, get to adjust their status within a year or two at max, right? Whereas folks such as you and I, we've had to wait over a decade, almost 15 years and longer in some cases, right? I mean, you yourself, I remember you mentioning a story where your colleague, both working in the same department, both working with the same skill sets, both on H1B, that colleague came from another country, got the green card within a year, and you had to wait how long? Maybe 12, 13 years?
Yeah, like that. Yeah,
Yeah, roughly
more than
around that
10
time.
years, definitely. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So it is just highly unfair and almost disgraceful, I feel, for America's immigration system that, nothing matters. The education doesn't matter, the qualifications doesn't matter, what you're bringing to the US economy does not matter. But what matters is which country you were born in. And, Anirban, you and I, we've been on multiple advocacy, we've had multiple campaigns. And every time we've spoken to, Congress, members of Congress, they've all said, this is a low-hanging fruit. This can happen today if we want to. But then I feel the want isn't there. We've seen multiple bills getting introduced, coming this close to getting, bills passed in 2019, which didn't even make it to the final, discussion back in 2019,
We've had the
2020, I
bill.
think.
We've had the bill pass the Senate unanimously.
Yes.
I think
Yes,
that's something.
exactly. It passed the House, it passed the Senate, and then it was to be brought again to
They
the
couldn't
House.
reconcile the two
Right.
different parts of the
Exactly. So,
federal
and
budget.
even I feel for kids, I hate to bring this comparison, but at least DACA kids are protected, right? Kids of high skilled workers on H1B are absolutely not protected under any category. I mean, CSPA, we've spoken about it multiple times. Deborah Ross, Rep Ross, had introduced some language which got rejected out of NDAA just very, very recently, a few days ago. And this brings me to think, is immigration ever going to change? It's like a political ping pong. Everybody talks about it as an agenda to get elected in office. And once they're in office, well, there are bandit fixes upon bandit fixes. Everybody thought that, with Prime Minister Modi's visit, yay, something's going to happen. But peanuts.
Right. So, yeah, it's more of a political agenda right now, right? I mean, everybody knows it sort of makes sense. I mean, no other country has this discrimination or whatever you want to say. And then there are, certain people who support it. It's like, diversity is key, blah, blah, blah. Which I understand, which is, I mean, everybody has their right to their thing. But, bringing in country of birth when it comes to giving employment-based
Exactly.
green cards. I mean, that's basically what I was saying, right? I mean, earlier when I used to say on social media, it was like, it's not employment-based green cards. It's basically green cards based on your job offer for people born in, like, based on your country of birth. That's it. So it's still based on your country of birth. It's just that you have a job offer. That's pretty much the only difference.
And I feel like, whatever Canada is doing right now by attracting people, another couple of days, the program to attract or pathway for H1B visa holders from US to Canada, even without a job, is going to open up. And that's going to open up some possibilities, although it's capped at 10,000 applicants, but still, there's dignity, there is self-worth, and there is no, like, you don't have to pity your situation, right?
Yeah. Plus, they're giving work authorization to the dependents, right?
Yes.
Something for which we had to fight for
Exactly.
to get, how many years H4 visa holders weren't allowed to work. I mean, you know it very well. So,
yes.
I mean, it's refreshing to see how a country can like change its immigration laws based on the economic needs of the country, and how they value the skills of the people and all that, unlike in a US where everybody knows it. It's just that there's no political motivation to get anything done.
That's true. At least it's a step in the right direction. Whether
Yes,
people
yeah.
will actually get jobs there, that's another
No,
topic
you're
of
right.
discussion. But
I think the interesting part that Canada did is they're going to give you a 3-year work permit, right?
yes,
And based on their point-based system, if you have experience in Canada, you have more points, right? So that kind of opens up the pathway
yes,
to residency, because then you're like, okay, now you have the points. You've already worked there, you've lived there. So it kind of like it adds to your. So I think it's a fantastic program that they're opening up. There's no doubt about that. And I'm pretty sure many US companies who have like offices in Canada, they would probably move some of their
oh
employees there.
yeah, and companies have been doing this. I remember specifically during Trump presidency, because of the whole fiasco that
When
happened
they
with.
really clamped on the.
Exactly, right? So companies were moving either up north or down south in Southern America, where the time zones are similar, so that they could keep everybody on the same time zones at least, right? So this is something that's been happening. It's not nothing new, but to bring a clear pathway and make a concrete possibility. I think kudos to Canada for doing that. I mean, that's a lost opportunity for America and American politicians, I feel.
Right. I mean, to specifically target H-1B visa
Yes,
holders, it's literally like a slap in the face. I mean, you're literally telling America you've got such a dysfunctional program that we're going to like attack that program of yours, and you're
yes.
going to take people out. I mean, kudos to them. I mean, they can get these things done. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, that reminds me.
I hope this program is really
I,
successful.
I hope so too. You remember that ad from the 90s, Onida TV?
Oh yeah.
Neighbors envy, owners pride. It's the other way around here now.
Yeah.
US is going to be that envious neighbor now, I guess.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, all right. I want to thank you, Anirban, for taking out time today and
Sure.
discuss this. This is something, people need clarity upon. There's been a lot of discussion happening upon it. So thank you. Thank you for giving us some insights today. And thank you for joining us today. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email ID is theamericanalien1@gmail.com. And if you haven't subscribed, subscribe. I did take a break for a little bit, but I'm back in action now, and I will be bringing more content that is relevant to you to help you understand what US immigration system is all about. Let's just cut the noise. See you again soon.